107.5 90.7 FM, www.nbcsvg.com. We are the sound of the nation. It's time to get in our program this morning. I'm Lasso Fire, morning's edition. This morning on our program we have Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves, the Institute of One, and joining us via Zoom, Professor Richard Robertson and the seismologist Roderick Stewart. We say good morning to you, Prime Minister. Good morning to you, Mr. Stewart. Good morning to you, Mr. Robertson.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, JP and NBC Radio and listeners. And Richie, good to see you back in fine fettle. And Roderick, I was worried about you yesterday morning, Richie, when I hear you gone all the morning down at Richmond.
Well, I didn't actually go to Richmond. I went to look into the water, so I was quite safe.
Oh, you were safe. I was. Remember, you know, I have adopted the words amended the words of my brother William Shakespeare. You know, you're a pearl greater than the tribe. Good morning. Tell us the story.
Okay, the story is very short today, and it's just everything is quiet. We still have just an occasional long period or BT earthquake, no sign of any tremor. So it's a continuation of the trend that we've seen since the last explosion on the 22nd. But the other thing that's happened in the last 24 hours, of course, is the amount of lahars that we had in the volcano. I think it was a 12-hour period yesterday. We were recording lahars on all the flanks of the volcano. And some people will have seen the damage and the flooding that's been caused by it. And I asked Richard to just come in today to give his first-hand experience of what the effects of these lahars look like. So, Richard?
Right. As you would have said, when the lahar started yesterday, I went down to the bank. I was standing more as the overlook at Richmond Villa Academy, looking down to the Wallaby River, and I was able to see the lahars and what it was doing. I think when I got there, it had already done a substantial amount of the damage that it did to the front, to the sort of the seaward side of the Wallaby River. I think most people, when they remember the trail to the volcano from the leeward side, where you sort of, there's an area where you park your vehicle and then you walk along the coastline. You cross sort of, sometimes it's one stream, or is one with, it's, you know, two areas that you have to cross water. But for those people, what you have to think about now, when you look there, when you stand at where the car is or the sign is, and you look across towards the volcano, you look across towards the waterfall, there's a ramp that's been built before by a pre-existing lahar that came down before that. I'll talk about that one. So there was one that came down probably about a week or two ago, and put a really substantial deposit, new material there. That you could, you know, it's almost like a flat road that you could drive a vehicle on. And earlier on this week, we were in that area, and we actually were able to walk along that and walk a little bit further right to the drying water pool. Well, the activity that happened yesterday cut a serious slice into that. So I would estimate from the seaward side going back to where it sort of is maximum inland. You're talking about 200 meters inland, and then if you go along the coastline, there's a sort of area about probably about 200 meters. That's basically the front of the waterfall now is really wide. If you think of from the seaward side, where you have a sort of an area over 200 meters, and you go inland in a sort of a V shape, probably 200 or 300 meters. All of that is gone into the ocean. So you can't walk along the beach anymore. There's no beach. There's in front of the waterfall. There is now the ocean that the Caribbean Sea is going into it, and the coastline in front of the waterfall river is now about 200 meters inland. In fact, you could almost walk with a boat a little bit inland, over 100 meters up the waterfall because of all of that material. Basically, the lahar came down. The lahars that you had yesterday were very corrosive. They had a lot of material in them. They brought all that material, there were a lot of tree trunks, there were bits and pieces of rock that would have come down from from plastic flows and all the ash, and it used that along with the water that was moving very fast, and it eroded the land. And the land was, in that case, was quite loose, especially in the coastal areas where you have mainly some loose material. And because on that particular side of the island, there's a huge trough. As people know, if people to respond to me, as you walk into the water, it just dropped off suddenly. There's a huge, it goes very deep, very fast, close to the coastline. So once it had eroded that, all of that went into the sea and it just eroded further back. And that hasn't happened only in Waterloo. There's areas in the dry Waterloo, sort of, if you are going to the trail and you have to walk up a river valley, which we call dry Waterloo. There's a lot of erosion in that also, and then we also saw in Roseau, we saw in Larakai, a lot of the deposits that had previously put down, where it had built up a little delta in front of the shoreline, in front of where the river comes down. It's now dug into that, and a substantial part of it has gone into the sea. And the water means that until it's restabilizing itself, if you want to put along if you were going to the trail on the leeward side, as people would normally walk along the beach, you can't do that anymore. You have to take a boat to go further in. That's the destruction and damage that you had, certainly on this side. And I would be surprised. On the other side, I suspect because the coastal shelf on the zone on the other side of the island, sort of the woman side, there's a lot more gentler incline as you go towards the sea. So it doesn't drop off so quickly into the ocean. So I suspect the erosion is probably less at the front of the river, but there's probably a lot of erosion along the river paths. So that's what we saw. There was a lot of erosion, and certainly Waterloo. If people see it, the pictures don't really do justice, but if you see it, you will sort of, your mouth will drop open and it's really amazing. On the sides, it's sort of, if you think of it, there's not really a valley, and from where the water is up to the edge of the bank is about 10 meters high. That's how high it's dug into it. Certainly Waterloo. It's quite impressive.
And there's a lot of trees put down as well.
Yeah, well, on the front, in fact, one of the things that we were saying to people, suddenly, any kind of speedboat, anybody who's flying the boats in the area on the windward side, on the western side of the island, they have to be very careful. There's a lot of tree logs in the ocean now, just floating about, because it's been brought down. All the trees that were killed by the volcano up in the mountains have been brought down by the lahars, and they're just sort of floating about the ocean. We went collecting some samples there, and they were one and a half times, sort of, you have to be dodging these logs all the time. So you can't go speeding along the east coast, the west coast, if you were doing that with a speedboat. You're liable to have it mashed up because of all these logs, so be careful.
Now, it was, you had said that there was no lahars from the afternoon into last night into this morning on either side.
No, they did not. The lahars stopped in the morning of yesterday. Okay, I mean we had signals taking us up to about 9 o'clock in the morning, but there was flooding after that. But there was no real heavy further rain, and we have no reports anyway of lahars since about 10 o'clock in the morning.
The actual rainfall report which I have for yesterday, we didn't have the rainfall for down that side because the station down there, we would not have been able to access, and something probably would have happened to it. But in Majorca, Richie and Roderick, over a 12-hour period, they had 2.8 inches of rain, and over 24-hour period, 4.3 inches. In Jennings, in a 12-hour period, there were 2.5 inches, and in a 24-hour period, there were 3.9 inches, call that 4 inches. In South Rivers, you had 1.2 inches in the 12-hour period, and 2.2 inches in the 24-hour period. And at Argyle International Airport, you had 6.5 inches in the 12 to 24-hour period. In fact, yesterday, between 6 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock, in that 6-hour period, they had 5.8 inches. They didn't write that down, but when I spoke to the meteorologist, my brother Billy, he told me that in that period, which is, when you take into account that we have roughly 100 inches per year on an average, that's under 9 inches on an average per month. It's something. Of course, that's the average. Some dry months is much less, some rainy months, but there's a significant amount of rain. Though I will have Julian, Francis, and Montgomery Daniel calling in. I don't know if you would have any view on this. He said to me that when he arrived, Julian that is, when he arrived at Rabaka, the river was dry. So he asked the people from Bragsa, he said, what happened? He said, well, half an hour ago it was raging. It just flooded, it was there, and then it just stopped in a very short period of time. It was battering and then just stopped.
Yeah, well, there's something, I'll make a comment about the lahars and what we've seen in the field so far. It means that for this volcano, we've had kind of two kinds of lahars. The classic kind that most people want to speak about lahars is what people saw yesterday, where it's a running river, a river that has a lot of water in it and a lot of material in the water, as rocks and stuff, as you hear the sound when it's sweeping around the ground and it's erosion, right? So it destroys things. While it seems that there was another one that we had earlier on where it looks like there wasn't that much water and the material moved much more slowly, and what it ended up doing is creating a deposit. So it lay down things rather than destroy things. So in a lot of the valleys that you had, on this side certainly, when the pyroclastic flows came down, a lot of them didn't necessarily come to the coastline as we thought. Some of them stayed a little bit higher up. And what it seems happen is that sometimes there's water in the ground, what we call artesian water in the ground that's groundwater that's collected. And sometimes the pyroclastic flows sort of opens up and allows that to come out. And once that starts moving, that mixes with the flows and brings a kind of more of a slurry that comes down the mountainside and makes a deposit. And a lot of what was in Wallaby was like that until the lahar that submarine came down, destroyed it. So I was saying that to make a point that it seems that it's possible, because the volcano has so much, you can think of it this way, water in it, collected in various pockets. You don't necessarily have to have too much rain on the mountain to create the water that you need to generate the lahar. And that's a very important thing.
Yes.
Because it's important because often when people speak about sort of ways of responding to lahars, what they tell people in the community, for example, is that it is really in the mountain. Don't be surprised if you have a lahar. What I'm saying is that it may be possible that you would have too much rain in the mountain, and because the solar rain will mobilize a hot pyroclastic flow that then will mobilize more water, you could have a lahar that has a bit of water, more water than you expect, than you're seeing from the rain. So I think in summary would be to say that it's important as we move forward to look at the valleys that you have on the volcano and assume that those valleys are going to be a place for lahars, and therefore in terms of putting things in there that you don't want to get affected by lahars, that's an important thing to consider, to move the things that you don't want to get destroyed by lahars out to the valleys, because you don't know when it's going to happen. And as we see, this could probably go on for a couple of years, this lahar activity. So that, I think that's so that would go with what Julia would have seen.
Yeah.
The rain probably generated all that flooding, and then once it wasn't there, and once that motivation force wasn't there, it died out.
Yeah.
Yes.
As you were saying that the Larrakai looked as if it was completely dry.
The rabbit.
The rabbit, Larrakai?
Yes.
He knows a lot better than I do to other rivers. The rabbit looked completely dry. The thing is, it might actually be flowing underground because you've got a thickness of deposits that are very porous.
Yeah.
And if the water flow isn't high, it can actually happen through the deposits.
In fact, well, that happens.
And we've seen that in Montserrat all the time, that the major river, which used to be flowing all the time, now we only see it flowing when there is really heavy rain, because it's an underground sort of passage.
So what you're saying is that people will see the flood for an intense period, say at Raboka, and it battering the bridge.
Yeah.
But that at a particular point, it may actually go underground,
Yeah.
coming down.
Once there's not enough of what's up higher up, it will.
Yes. But Julian, I'm going to get Julian and Montgomery Daniel to come on sometime later. Or if you want them to come on while you're talking, because what is Julian had speculated that it probably dammed at the top somewhere along the way and got diverted somewhere. But Gomery had gone up. Gomery had gone up further. Gomery went as far as London, just before Sandy Bay proper, and he didn't see the extent of that water, because he said that there might have been a dam and which didn't breach, which wasn't diverted necessarily, and which didn't breach the banks of the dam. So that is still there to come.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that will happen, because I mean, people have to visualize that up on the volcano, there's a lot of tree trunks, all kinds of things that's blocked up, in all kind of funny ways. So you might have a little bit of rain that will actually make the blockage worse, and it means that a lot of water could then get collected behind the blockage before that.
Yes.
So that kind of thing, I think we just trying to say that kind of thing is something that you kind of have to expect happening all the time.
And who's on, Julian? Yeah, and then if I may just complete before Gomery comes on, Julian is coming on. But Gomery said that when he reached London, he couldn't pass London, Richie. The whole set of boulders and all kind of things. But he will tell his story when he comes on. But I was only, as you notice, when I talk to you guys early morning, I also try and talk to other people to see if I can get a fairly complete sense as to what is happening. And all this kind of discussion illuminates it for me, certainly. But Julian is on. Julian can tell us what he saw on the eastern side.
Morning.
Hey, Julian.
Hey, morning, Phil.
You're on. Richie and Roderick Stewart from Seismic. They're on also.
Yeah, I heard the explanation, and I naturally, my view of it being diverted upstream is a non-informed view, but I take what Richie and his counterpart say.
It's not uninformed, it's speculative.
Speculative. Well, but I would rather say uninformed. But I've also seen, I mean, Raboka has gone underground for many months of the year under normal circumstances, so that's a reasonable. I accept the explanation of it.
No, the one thing to be careful of is if there's anywhere any culverts or any channeling of the rivers, you're going to have to check that.
Well, I wasn't going to take a chance. I wasn't going to take a chance to go upstream.
No,
because I don't know. I don't know if there was a dam up there that was going to burst open on me as I go upstream. So I stayed far from the river.
But Julian, since we have you on, what did you see at the Raboka Bridge itself?
Yeah, there is some damage to one of the center columns. There was a metal sheeting at the front in a V shape, when the bridge was constructed, when we had that last eruption and the torrents came down, that was dented sort of. You could have seen some damage to it. But in this case, that has been ripped off, and the structural steel ring binders and upright steel are now exposed. Richard Hadley said he went under the bridge.
Richard Hadley is who?
Richard Hadley is the manager of the operations of Bradford at Rabaco.
Okay.
And he looked and he said he didn't see any structural cracks or anything, but definitely we have to excavate that and do closer inspection and repair the front of that column.
About
the river, the bridge top is gone, the rails are gone, and the tractor went over and cleaned it, so you can drive over for persons for inspection at this point in time.
But now, what are the extent of the deposits? Which I know it's being cleaned daily.
Yeah.
But this, do you have any idea as to the extent of the deposits? Because
Well,
the base of the river, Julian, normally, from the base of the river, in the normal, when Rabaca was built, say, and how is it normal, to where the top, what it was and how many inches of deposit you say approximately came?
Well, from the original construction, I think that they built it with an 18-foot clearance from the bottom.
Yes.
What I saw yesterday, there were about 3 to 4 feet from the top of the deposit to the bottom of the bridge.
I see.
Water having gone through the bridge, under the bridge, and taken out the deposits in its path, there was a 4 to 5 feet embankment of deposits above where the water was flowing.
I see.
So there's significant deposits there and above because it curves down under the bridge. The deposit immediately like 10 feet from the bridge edge upwards is higher. So if you had that height, you would basically have about 12 inches clearance under the bridge. But it curved under the bridge and came out.
Now, let me ask, the embankments are joining, not the bridge itself, not the abutments.
The abutments.
Not the abutments themselves for the bridge,
Yes.
but the embankments which were made of, the stones which were put at an angle.
Right.
On both sides. What happened to those?
On the southern end of the bridge, that's all covered and there's a nice picnic area there. But just of Rabaca deposit.
Yes.
It's built up right to the level of the road, up under the grape trees where the branches,
Yes.
where the benches are.
Yes.
And it filled back in that abutment.
I see.
The northern abutment got some scoured out from behind, and in front is not as pretty as the southern end.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the southern end you had accretions and the
Yeah.
no, but you're not going to be able to know about the structural integrity of the bridge until you excavate, until you move away all the rubble.
If we have a uneventful day, they will continue the excavation under there, as they do on a regular basis every time a deposit comes down.
Yes.
They have a bulldozer, they have excavated, they have backhoe, so
Okay.
they're trying, but that's a lot of work.
Yes.
To get it out in one day may not be as easy as it sounds.
Yes. So we have to keep our fingers crossed that we don't get him any more rains.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Any more lahas. I'm more concerned about
the lahas. Yes.
rain.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about it.
All right. Anything, since we have you on, anything else you want to report in?
I just want to say that Argyle, well, let me put it this way. I think the bulk of the rain came before we woke. That's my feel on it. Because when I got to Argyle, the 5-tunnel bridge under the airport was a normal rainstorm flow. And on the eastern end of the runway, when you got to the old Argyle bridge that was destroyed in 2016 2 or 3 times with the floods, I didn't see that sort of evidence that was there of the heavy flow. So that the rainfall the heavy rainfall basically, and I'm saying I passed there about 11 o'clock because I got to Rabuka about 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I would say by then the rain had subsided. Maybe it came heavier to the coast where the other station is.
Yes.
But not so heavy up in the mountains.
I see.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Okay, good.
And Richie,
Yeah.
if you and Roger can stay on while we try and see if we can get Gomery, because it might be interesting to hear what he has to say about further up going to the northeast now. He didn't get past London. Richie, I'm very proud of these men in the cabinet, you know. You notice the fellas going up, and technical people going, but they also going to see with their eyes so that they can report. See with their own eyes.
Yeah. I mean, it's just to say that what Julian was saying just now in terms of the rain, a lot of the rain falling in the night. Given what we saw in terms of the damage down here, it looked like the things I was thinking about happened before sort of 6 o'clock in the morning. So by the time I got to Richmond to see the damage, the substantial part of the damage was done. So I agree with him that a lot of the rain fell early in the morning from the
Let me just, we haven't Gomery coming on, Richie, but I just indicate that I didn't give you the rainfall from the Rabuka station. We couldn't, in order for us to read that in the circumstances, we had to go there physically, and it wasn't wise for us to go there physically yesterday.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, Gomery.
Good morning, Prime Minister. Good morning.
You have Richie also, and Roderick.
Yeah.
On. You're listening to Julian.
Yes, I got a bit of Julian a while ago.
Yeah. What did you see when you went up as far as London?
Yes, Prime Minister. After the heavy rain yesterday, I took with me Bill Morris, who is one of the workers at Bractor.
He's a senior road supervisor for up there.
Yes, Prime Minister. And we traversed to as far as London Sandyby. Of course, when we got to Rabuka, the river was already cleaned by the equipment that was present there. So we journeyed to as far as London, where we could not have traversed because there was no access. Again, all of the residential buildings along the riverbed, again, they would have been challenged. There are those that may have been remaining from the first river flow 2 weeks ago, and a number of them would have collapsed in the second attack of the second Laha. So that of course there is continued work in that regard. But there are tremendous deposits in all of the riverbed. I heard Julian in terms of yes, the Rabuka River. It has been built up to approximately 3 to 4 feet under the bridge itself, and there is tremendous work there to be done. We have to ensure that we have more heavier, better equipment to go in to remove the deposits as soon as possible. I know Julian mentioned, of course, that it appeared to him as though there may have been a damming of the river, the Rabuka River. But of course, I have been in that area all my life, and sometimes there is no rain, but Rabuka comes down and on the coast, and sometimes there are tremendous rain, but Rabuka is not down. What accounts for that? Richie mentioned a while ago, of course, there may be different circumstances, and because I'm accustomed to it, that you can have a lot of rainfall, and in a matter of 1 hour, all of that velocity subsides, and that's what we would have been accustomed to before the bridge would have been there. That the river can be torrential, but in 1 hour you can be able to pass the river because it subsides, and one would ask where would all of that water would have gone. That the action of that Rabuka River is not like that at Argyle, where there's a continuous flow. And so Richie rightly mentioned, of course, the actions that can that can be addressed in terms of that kind of action. So, yes, the deposits are there at Robaca. That has to be removed. The general cleaning has to be done. And there's where we are in terms of the actions we had yesterday. Now, as a matter of fact, yesterday morning before I left, Minister Francis and I, along with Kemp Bartholomew, the manager of Blackster, we met to discuss what strategy we would use for the immediate cleaning. And so, in a matter of minutes, we would have had as many private contractors going out with their equipment to remove as much of the debris as possible. And then this morning we are continuing to clean up all around St. Vincent. We are handling Kingstown area as much as possible this morning. And we are hoping to have even individuals who are at the shelters to assist in small contracting, cleaning the drains and the sidewalks and so on, even all around Kingstown. So we are at work this morning as well, Prime Minister.
Very, very good, Gomery. Just one thing about how many additional structures in the London area near to the riverbed, near to the flow,
yeah,
the riverbed there in London. How many of them you thought went on the second lahar or the second series of lahars?
Well, the numbers there is around about a dozen or so. And in Sandy Bay Proper, of course, both at Cayo and Caro River, there are structures there as well. It's like about 4 or 5 at Caro and another 4 or 5 at Cayo River.
So you're talking in all 20-something?
Yes, it will be about 2 dozen or so structures within those regions, within those 3 regions.
That's bad. That's bad.
Yeah.
That's a big number in that small area. All right.
But of course, a number of those structures, though, they are not massive structures, really. They are smaller structures.
But still, they belong to people.
Yes, of course.
You know? Yes. And you know what? a fella save his money a little bit, he put his labor, and maybe get sometime a couple of sacks of cement through the state system, and so on and so forth. And we all have to remember, a man whom, however modest, is his castle.
Well, of course, Prime Minister, one of the interesting features of individuals building in that area is that they do not have the capacity to go to the bank to borrow large sums of money.
Yeah.
So what happened is that, of course, when they do catch their hand, as it is said, they would actually buy a couple of sacks of cement, a couple of pieces of galvanized, and put something together for their what they call their home.
Well, they as we know, they build it vike with family labor and friends, and on the weekend, the lady in the family go cook pilau or boiling, and men fortify themselves with some spirit from Monbentic.
Yes. The only troubling factor there is the way the houses are built.
Yeah.
In conformity to what is required in terms of the legislation,
the planning laws.
Yes, of course.
Well, the mantra building back stronger. All those things have to be. We know we have been addressing them, but we have to address them even more sharply.
Yes.
And people have to understand that when physical planning comes by and say, listen to me, you can't build there, or you can't build in the manner in which you build in. They're not trying to keep down a small man. They're trying really to help the small man, because
exactly
in this period of volcanic activity and climate change generally, it's in your interest to build in a manner which is sustainable. Of course, the small man says, well, Gomery, you gotta help me.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's all that is part of the challenge which we have.
Yes, yes.
All right. Anything else you want to add?
But I think basically that's it.
All right.
And the only thing is that we have to, get the cleaning going today and into next week, So there's where we are.
All right then. All right then, Gomery. I'm really proud of you and Julian. And,
Thank you very much.
And the workers in Bragson and Transport and Works. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Sure.
Richie, I don't know if you heard Montgomery Daniels' report.
If I can crave your indulgence to make a comment, please.
Yes.
Right. And I'm making this in the context of the fact that I am no longer team lead, so I'm providing some perspective from a scientific perspective on the issue that you have ongoing, sort of on a broader context.
Yes.
I think we've said that you need to have an ongoing problem of lahars for some time. So therefore, there are various ways that you could deal with that. Some people will say that you should have some sort of warning system in place. I think given the where the lahars were originated versus where they impact, I think a warning system, in my humble perspective, is I could say it frankly, but I'll say it nicely, is not something I would recommend. I could say struggling that. Instead, I think what we need to look at is that you have a volcano in which people would want to live, and I understand why. But what has happened, as you just identified, is that people have put settlement and put themselves in harm's way by building structures in the valleys. Now, they might have gotten away with that in the past because you don't have too much flood and you don't have too much water passing through. But given what the volcano has done, you're going to have, for the foreseeable future, a problem that anytime you have rain, and in fact, sometimes when you don't have rain, because as Montgomery just confirmed kind of what we see from our field observations, this volcano has a way in which it could store water and get the water down the valley without you having too much rain. So it means that ongoing for the next couple of months and years, you're going to have a problem that if you live in the valley, if you live anywhere in the slopes and is in the valley, you're going to have your house and anything there and then mash up and then the river come down, because it's going to come down, with big boulders, it's going to come down with tree trunks. So if you live there and you put your stuff there, it means that you're going to have to build it back. And you, as you correctly said, our principle, and it's not just this now, principle in the region generally is that, especially for the poor person, the person who's just struggling, is that our insurance is actually the government. So what those people would expect, if they're not sort of coerced in some way not to do that, is that when the structures fail and break up, they will come to the government. So I would suggest that it's important that the government agencies and the planning people and whatever it is that would stop people from putting themselves in harm's way need to be very forceful to ensure that happens, especially going forward in incidents to make you would have that problem. Secondly, I'll suggest that maybe what you have to do, just like you do in Arabica, and it happens in Montserrat, we have pre-positioned assets, material to prepare for what you have to clean out. So you have to kind of have a proactive strategy where you're ready, when it is in the waters, that you know this is going to happen, this block is going to happen, this community is going to get cut off, and you just go out as soon as something happens, you go and clear, that kind of thing. And then lastly, in my humble opinion, we had this thing where before this eruption, we had this volcano ready project, which was fortunately funded by the Caribbean Development Bank, and we do various things. When we work with communities to make them more quote-unquote volcano ready, I think you need something like that for lahars. You're going to have a program which, working in these communities, particularly north of Arabica, we will have that problem. We make them, what I would say, lahar ready, sort of make the community more, understand better what the hazard is. That might actually get solve the problem of people building in the area, because if people understand more what's going to happen, if you're struggling here building a house that you can't build any other way, you wouldn't want to put it in some place where you know that in the next rainy season you get mashed up. You want to find a different place to put it. So the lahar already would make people more aware. They would probably give them the means that they could dig themselves out a little bit, which is what kind of volcano already did. But this will focus more on lahars. I suggest that as those three things might be some things to think about. And I'm saying this just as a scientist who's looking at the situation rather than from seismic or from the team. I'm just making it clear. This is Richard Roberts giving you some advice, right?
And I'll just give you a little bit of Montserrat perspective. That we've been living with Lahars and Montserrat for now a decade, more than a decade, and they do that. So that there's one community that they know they will get cut off for at least a day if there's a serious Lahar. So people in that community always have preparedness. They have food and water. They have, power generators, stuff like that, so they can get through that one day whilst they're cut off. Similarly, we have the bulldozers, the excavators are positioned next to the major crossings, and they can get them open within a few hours sometimes. So we've been living with them, and it makes life a lot easier if you've made all these preparations in advance.
Yes. Well, there's, in terms of the equipment, there's some of that which we do, like for instance, we have equipment stationed permanently at Rabaka. Well, obviously they can't be where they are now with this river threatening to come down all the time now. So, but they're nearby by the Langley Park, where we have a packaging facility there. So it's nearby, just minutes rolling away, and we would position from time to time when we know in dealing with the hurricanes, because you tend to know in advance when it's coming now, and we have equipment stationed at various points. But obviously that is something which, on the basis of the advice you're given, we need to strengthen.
Yeah.
And some of the matters which you raised too about in both of you in relation to people in vulnerable areas trying always to see if they can keep a couple of days of food, just in case something were to happen, and all of these are things which have been talked about before, as you rightly said, and some people have followed them and others not. But hopefully, these series of events would bring it into people's minds and bodies, because not like experience, a real life experience. And I'm really grateful for the contribution this morning on some of these issues, including the policy paths going forward. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to say.
No, I think we're good. Just
No.
All right, and thanks very much.
All right.
What I'd like to do, Johnny P, is supplementary to what we have heard from Richie and Roderick and Julian and Gomery. Is I will give some information which is additional. I wouldn't repeat all of that. I got a situational report yesterday at 5:15 p.m. as to basically, know what information they had gathered up to that point. As you see, we're still continuing investigation. Guys have to go up. People have to go do further investigations, and consistent with their safety. I'm talking about the guys from BRAGSA and the Ministry of Works. In terms of the flooding yesterday, there were reports of flooding at 3 emergency shelters: Doris Mackey Learning Resource Center, CW Prescott Primary, and Sand Hill Government. And of course, we all know there was flooding at E.T. Joshua Airport Shopping Center. That whole city, which we're going to build, has to have a entirely new drainage system, and so on and so forth. It flooded at Heritage Square, Bentic Square, and the roundabout. There's some buildings which are also flooded, like for instance, at the Ministry of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, the third floor, that I was told that I was advised that the maintenance people and Bragsa who came, I didn't speak to them, but officials at my office spoke to them and relayed it to me, so I got the information secondhand, that there was some flooding there, and it was done, the drain pipe was blocked. And through that particular process, water came into the ministry, the third floor. And then, of course, it also seeped down into finance. So they were doing cleaning up and that sort of thing. And I believe that happened in a number of buildings. Well, we hear what happened at Raboka and along the way, and down in the northwestern side from Ritchie. Additionally, we know that there was a retaining wall at the Belay Cemetery was washed away. And there were at least 9 landslides where you had, where we have habitation. There was Rosewood, Zion Hill, Golden Vale, Fair Hall, Upper Montrose area. There's a house there which was destroyed. They haven't provided me with the name of the person because I'd like to call them to find out what has happened. At Fountain, at Cane Hall, at Victoria Village, and Brighton, and Mackey's Hill. There was the landslide at Gurley, at Gurley Hill in Upper Rockies area, and there were 2 homes destroyed there. I spoke to both Luke and Fitzbramble. But Luke was by my office and Fitzbramble had called, and I returned this call, and I made the arrangements with social development. And this morning I tried to speak to these persons yesterday, didn't get them on the phone. Naturally, they were up and down doing things. And but I spoke to Ian for one of the house and Dexter. There's one family 6, one family 7. They got them temporary lodgings. In fact, one of them slept in the car last night. But the children and family, they got temporary accommodation, but the accommodation is being dealt with and other things. And I spoke to the Permanent Secretary in Social Development, and that is being dealt with. And I was also told that you had several persons, I'm trying to get the final number, whether it is 7 or 9, was at the downstairs of also evacuees, was at another building up there, and they had to be housed elsewhere too. And for a short period of time, about 3,500 customers were affected for Vinlec, and they had those services disrupted. And in relation to CWSA, the water, all the systems are functioning normally. What they did, they closed the inlets because they had storage, like for instance up at Jennings, which is, the 2 big systems are Jennings and biggest are Jennings and Dalloway. Dalloway is bigger than Jennings. But and Jennings takes care of an area where we had problems, because it's at the top end of the orange zone. Well, bordered orange and red zone. That they had the 750,000 gallons in the catchment, so they're feeding off that, and they will do all what they have to do in the normal way these things happen, and start to open back the inlets and so on and so forth. If there is anything I'm saying here which is wrong, both Gat or Thornley, Gat Saunders from CWS or Thornley Myers can talk to me, can call in. Now there are, you know, the on Wednesday at Cabinet, we kind of fashioned the broad, well, more than the broad, and put some details to a package which we bring into Parliament. On the 11th, supplementary appropriation bill, where we are dealing with the immediate rehabilitation, the immediate humanitarian relief, and cleaning up and all the rest of it. But yesterday morning, early, Camilo called me and said, well, my numbers have to be revised upwards. And we are having a discussion on that. I had it yesterday too, and this afternoon at 3 o'clock. He and Edmund Jackson, the Director General of Finance and Planning, and their team, and myself, we're going to have a discussion on some of the newer numbers, and a meeting at Cabinet on Tuesday morning, a special meeting to finalize some further things. Because, you know, we in addition to all what we have done with COVID, I'm not going over that, because those things are continuing. For instance, in the red and orange zone, we had to provide income support for farmers for a particular period of time, and also for non-farmers in that same period of time, and farmers in green and yellow zones, we have to provide some support also, naturally less than what you will do for those who are in the red and orange zone. There's money which we have to pay out for persons whom we have in guest houses and the like. You know, particular categories of persons whom we had mentioned earlier, who can't properly be accommodated inside of the inside of the shelters. And then meals for at least 7,000 persons in the shelters, 3 meals. I don't, you know, for a period of time. And we want to introduce where we're giving packages at the moment, and some of that will continue, but we'd also want to introduce as far as practicable food vouchers where you can have them. People people who are, especially those who are in the private homes, and we have food boxes, the love boxes, all those things will require a lot of money and logistics and trucking. We have to clean up, the cleanup and some early stages of reconstruction. The cleanup itself, building materials, heavy equipment, enhanced stuff through social development, some people fridge and stove mash up. A very interesting thing is this. It'd be a very interesting thing, and the lawyers could advise on this. If I have a fridge on credit, on hire purchase, and it get destroyed by the elements, Is the liability only on the person who I mean the loss, sorry, not the liability, the loss, is it on the person alone? Or is it shared with the hire purchase company, or it's completely borne by the hire purchase company? I don't know. The lawyers will have to advise on that. I've been advised on certain things, but that's a matter of for some further reflection. Things are not often as straightforward as it may be on the face of it. Then we have an environmental problem with all these water bottles, plastic bottles. We have to do special cleanups for that. Then further support on the medical front, medical hygiene, and then we have to give support for agricultural production, which includes not just agriculture but fisheries, agriculture and fisheries and livestock. And then there are people who have, apart from the bigger cleaning up of the ash and so on and so forth, there's a lot of roads have to be cleaned, in some of the normal ways now, and even more so now than ever. So I'm just giving some indication of, and the other things, I'm just giving some indication of some of the matters which we have to address, and the cost is going to be humongous. I want to make this point. People here, for instance, the government of Norway, the government of the United Kingdom, the USA, Canada, European Union, some other places, they've been generous to St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the humanitarian period, this relief period. But understand this, the humanitarian money is from those countries. They haven't come directly to the government. Because offering humanitarian relief, you notice, I know how these things run. From experience and from knowledge. A lot of these, all throughout the world, the immediate humanitarian relief, they give agencies to work with you, like, for instance, the Red Cross, the World Food Program, CDMA, Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, and other entities, global NGOs or regional bodies, and in some cases local NGOs. The important thing is in the delivery of assistance through all those things, you have to work with NEMO so that the World Food Program not going to function most efficiently unless it works within the structures, the national structures. But they will come with their own persons, they get support personally. Same thing with Red Cross. And all of these entities have to have the necessary capacity to do these things. Of course, the government itself gets humanitarian relief. It got, for instance, some Caribbean countries have pledged the central bank, the CDB, there's a grant, and there are loans which we're getting through the CDB and financial institutions like the World Bank and the like. But I would like when you hear an announcement about these things, the humanitarian relief, people must read the fine print as to where that money is actually going. And that's why at the very beginning I made the point that we alone in St. Vincent and the Grenadines cannot do it, and we have to work hand in glove with regional the regional international community, including regional and international NGOs, because that is how humanitarian relief rolls out. Some resources will come to the government in where you do certain state-to-state things, but others will come through these organizations. And I just want to make that point. For instance, here in St. Vincent, the Grenadines, we would rely to help in a very important supplementary way. The Red Cross. That's why the Red Cross juridically is part of NEMO, is part of the Management Council of NEMO. Though it has its own independence, and whatever funds it receives, it is answerable to the Red Cross International or whichever branch is overseeing what's happening here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and so on and so forth. I thought I'd explain that in terms of how these things go. As the case, Antigua, Dominica, the case here before, time immemorial, happening all over. That's how these countries do. But what I really want to participate, what I really want a partnership with is not only, I'm talking about the countries around the world, not only in this humanitarian period, through NGOs or regional organizations, and also sometimes through the government, but for them to partner with us, with the government, on the recovery and reconstruction, what is come under the broad rubric of rehabilitation. If you notice, day before yesterday, I don't know if you all carry the story, because once I leave, I hardly, unless people tell me things, I hardly get to hear radio or watch TV or anything like that. I mean, it's just like metaphorically a daily treadmill. It'd be a good thing if I go on a real treadmill, but I'm on a metaphoric one. but the 2 days ago at the United Nations, St. Vincent and the Grenadines presented a resolution. Well, it came through CARICOM, the CARICOM countries there. And out of the 100, and by 11 o'clock in the morning, 176 countries, day before yesterday morning, at the General Assembly of the United Nations, 176 countries had already co-sponsored the resolution, which is a big number. And there's some very interesting speeches which were made. One, for instance, by the United States ambassador. One made by the British United Kingdom ambassador, permanent representative to the UN. And all those who co-sponsored, and all those who gave the support, and all those who spoke, I want publicly to thank all of them for the support at the United Nations. And I had asked my staff to circulate it to all members of the media, and there were some speeches, and those are the others. Members of the media can go on and look on the UN website, and they'll find them, so that at least do some further checking and research on important things, rather than, in some cases, some people just report comments and say about this or that. Like, for instance, and even inquiries, somebody who is responsible called me this morning, text me about whether it's true that 2 persons died. 2 children, it's reported. Another party text me, they hear a child died. And it turned out that the photographs or reports from some other country. I mean, I said to you already, if you want to find out what's happening, just follow the reports from NEMO. Follow the reports from the Ministry of Health. I mean, how many times I have to say this? But nowadays, too many people want to believe rumor and hearsay. and fake news. They must really stop it. You know, and some people just do it out of mischief. I don't know why people are like that. So I wanted to speak to basically what is ahead for us. Day by day, we are fine-tuning all the systems, and we're moving along fine. You'll have an odd person here or there still without a mattress. You know, some person. If I will suggest, I mean, and when that is picked up, it's been addressed, and I happen to know that not only there, but not only in the shelters, but also in people's homes. But I want to say this: if you have, and this has been reported to me, you may have a family. You have one. You may have a family of 10 people. 9 of them may have beds, mattresses, but one don't have a mattress, a cot. And the person who somehow gets to sleep on the cot is an older person. Well, it's easier for a young person to sleep on the cot than the older person. And I know if you might be saying, Ralph, you don't know what you're talking about. You ever sleep on a cot? I could tell them this, and let me say this publicly. I'm not saying that we should not all have the mattresses, but of course, in disasters, countries all over the world, they hard to get mattresses. A lot of countries. But when I was 16 and 17 years old, went to school at the grammar school, and I came to stay in town. My mother got somewhere for me to stay in the Lower Middle Street area. And where I was staying, and I'm grateful to have gotten the lodging, people didn't have any room for me to stay. Didn't have any extra bed either. My mother bought for me a cot. And the cot, on nights, I roll it, I take it out, and I sleep, put the cot in the living room. Well, there were no TV then days to keep you awake. People have a radio, they have it in their own bedroom. And in the morning I get up early, I fold up the cot, put it in a corner. I sleep in a cot for 2 years at the grammar school. When I was going as a student at the grammar school, when I was 16 and 17. So sometimes they see you, they think you drop out from the sky. So I'm just saying, if you have a situation like that, the 17-year-old, the 18-year-old, the 20-year-old, the 22-year-old, sleep on the cot now. You'll get a bed, but meanwhile, le mommy or granny, sleep on the bed now. In fact, if you have 2 cots, you could be even, and there are 2 young persons, you could sleep on it and let granny have 1 mattress on top of another because she might get arthritis in her knee. And to come off on a mattress from the floor is more problematic. Or it might be somebody who is pregnant and who ain't get yet inside of who they didn't get around to put inside of one of the guest houses. I mean one of the rooms at a guest house. Because if you're 7 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant, even 6 months, 5 months, in certain circumstances, to lie down flat on a mattress and to have to get up. You need somebody to hold your hand, to lift you up, because you can't roll over and get up so easy because of the extra weight you're carrying and the issues involved in the pregnancy. I know some people will be listening to me and say, but Ralph, what are you talking about? Pregnancy is not an illness. Of course I know it's not an illness, but you can't walk as fast if you're pregnant as you without you're pregnant. You can't jump, you can't. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration by everybody who manages in the shelters, but also inside of a family itself. That's the point I want to make. Because every day when I talk, I try to raise some practical issue and offer some practical advice. You may reject the advice, but because, that's, I do the best I can in that regard. So that's where we are. There are other things I could talk about, but I think I've spoken enough, and maybe people might have a couple of questions. Oh, VINLEC could host a press conference this morning at 11. It was previously scheduled for yesterday. I'm sorry it wasn't held yesterday, because there must be good reason why they didn't hold it, but this is a case where a lot of angst could have been avoided, in my view, if the issues engaged in could have been dealt with earlier. It's true a press release came out, but the press release, unless you read it very carefully, you could always misinterpret. As I understand it, and VINLEC will talk about it, several of the bills are higher because the billing period is longer. Because when they went to do to check the meters, they couldn't go. Normally they check it 30 days, 31 days. So you get it for a month. But in some cases it was 40 days or more. Well, if that is so, your bill is higher now. But the next one, it wouldn't be 30 days, it might be 20 days, so it's going to be lower. In the circumstances, for a number of people who are only paying something, and during this period, and there's a moratorium, it may not have, in practical terms, it may not affect you, or unlikely to affect you, because of how it would work out. But when people get it and they see it, they say, but wait, how the bill gone so high? And they get very antsy. And of course, some places they didn't get to read at all. So they made an estimate. But that could have been explained in a very easy manner, in a differently worded press release I'm submitting. I may be wrong, but I'm giving my view. Differently worded in a press release, stating the plain facts in point form, saying for some persons the bill may appear larger. The reason for this is because it's not 30 days or 31 days, it's 42 days or whatever it is. Some is I estimate, and if it's up or down, it will be sorted out over the period of time. But remember, all the time you can still do a moratorium. I don't think the release was customer friendly. Let me put my mouth very firm on that, because a sensible person read it. I heard about it and I asked Tonley, and Tonley explained to me, and I said, fine. I didn't see the release. and a sensible person had it on their phone, and I saw it. And he had a different reading and understanding. He thought that it was saying that the something was wrong with the meter them, and the meter give wrong reading. You know what I mean? But it spoke about bill delays and the processing of the bills. But the thing could have been more. I think it could have been presented in a clearer manner, and somebody should have come on the radio and explain it. We have enough persons. Stanley himself didn't have to do it, but you have people who inside of there, and people are paid to do these things, and that's my view. And I'm not beating up on anybody. I'm just saying it that we have, especially in times like these, we have to always think of the angst, the anxieties which are in people. And should have made absolutely clear also that look in the red zone. And I would say the areas in the orange zone which are badly affected, that in this is how we are treating people in those particular zones. Of course, if you don't use the electricity, you're not if you don't use it, there'll be nothing for you to pay if you leave the red zone. Unless, of course, you didn't plug out your fridge and your stove. Well, I don't know, not many people have electric stove. Certainly not in St. Vincent. It's easier, it's cheaper to use gas. Your electricity, your freezer, your TV, whatever it is, you plug them out. I don't. So, but a lot of confusion and anxieties could have been saved. But I believe that those anxieties have subsided, because I spoke the first day on this from what I learned. But it's too late. I am saying this should have. They're having a press conference today. I thought it take place yesterday. I thought it took place. There might be good reason why it wasn't held, but I have to express my dissatisfaction. If I'm wrong, I'll come back and eat humble pie. This thing has to be. People have psychosocial issues at this time, I also want to say this before I take any questions which are there. And I've heard it said from certain people, and I don't want to get involved in this, about there's political discrimination in the distribution of relief supplies. I mean, it is just, and to make that, for some responsible person to make that allegation without providing one scintilla of evidence is the height of irresponsibility. Somebody has to tell me how, when you're distributing food, so many people distributing food to shelters, you can discriminate. How you could discriminate with so many persons sending out food to people in houses or in people who are still in the orange zone? There are volunteers who are doing things, and they are doing a good job. That somebody, your neighbor, may get something, and you don't get, and you also had called Nemo. It does not mean that there's anything perverse. All it means is that there has been an error of omission. It's not an easy thing to provide supplies to 2,500 families, 2,500 households spread across the yellow zone and the green zone with the evacuees. And then when you extend it further to go into certain places outside, there's a home. I know the husband and the wife working, and they call me to complain to me, to tell me that in the village they didn't get, they don't have anybody taking in, they didn't get any food. I mean, come on. Everybody has to be reasonable, and let me not break the social solidarity in fighting over these little things. I'm begging people, please. And if they bring supplies into a particular village and they take them to a church which is central, and you see 2-3 trucks pass with boxes of food, you don't call complaining and say the truck them pass you. Well, just walk 5 minutes and go up to the church, Look, everybody, both those who are distributing and those who are receiving, we must have great sensitivity and a sense of balance and a reasonableness. I know the Christian Council put out a pastoral letter, calling and asking for these same things, for good sense, for understanding, for compassion, for reasonableness, for patience. All of these virtues, I know that people have anxieties, but leaders should not be, and influential personalities should not be saying these things. I'm talking about political victimization or something somebody do untoward and so on. If you have evidence for it, tell Michelle Forbes, tell me. But you must have evidence. I speak firmly on that because I value highly social solidarity, especially at a time like this. Unless we keep our social solidarity, whatever our political differences, we are not going to successfully address all the humanitarian issues we have to address. And certainly, we will not be successful in our reconstruction efforts. We have to drop a lot of the political foolishness, a lot of the vanity, plenty of the hearsay and gossip. I want you to listen to a man who has been through many struggles in life, and to say to you, and I've studied carefully the experiences in this country and elsewhere, do not speak or act in a manner to undermine the social solidarity which we have at the moment. You know, I love the story about Nehemiah, the prophet builder, who rebuilt with his people, the Hebrew people, the city walls around Jerusalem, which was broken for 112 years. Nehemiah was able to do it because of the unity, the social solidarity of the Hebrew people in carrying out this task. It didn't mean they didn't have differences, you know. People would always have differences. And there's always Sanballat and Tobiah of the Ammonites who want to bring dissension and confusion and to take you away from the path of rebuilding. And metaphorically, at this moment, the challenge is before us. We are rebuilding the city walls around our Jerusalem named St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And the social solidarity is a critical ingredient. It does not mean that you don't have your political views about this or that. But in this rebuilding process, let us cut out a lot of that foolishness. And a lot of it is bare rubbish. And what amplifies it is that anytime somebody feels a grievance or want to complain, they rush on the cell phone. They go on the calling on the radio. Or some political leader or some political personality wanting to have some relevance in the situation, go and make all kind of wild and silly allegations. We must stop it, stop it, stop it. Let us maintain the social solidarity which we have in our country. Let's take some queries.
NBC Radio, the sound of the nation. We're in program Eyeing Lasso for the morning edition in studio. Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves. We'll have some time for some calls at this time. 457-2705. Magic 516-350-9891. The numbers to call. You can also send your WhatsApp messages to 457-2705. A question here, Prime Minister. Liaison with seismologist in the inactive state as the volcano as is now, how long before an all clear can be given? Liaison with the seismologist.
No, the seismologist is not saying the volcano is inactive, you know. The seismologist is saying that we have a lull now. There is little or no seismic activity in terms of the earthquakes which we had been having, and there are no tremors. So I just want to make that point.
Questions coming in from WhatsApp.
But I understand, I just wanted to correct the inactive thing, but I understand the question. The real import of the question is, with things in a lull, when can we go back? I can't say yet, because I posed that question myself to the seismologists, and they have to watch it for a period still. But in the meantime, we have to prepare. And we have to still follow the instructions of not going above Raboka in the northeast and above Rosebank in the northwest, because we have to make sure that we are safe. We see the dangers of the lahars and so on and so forth. Now, clearly this is a question of judgment by the seismologists when they feel that it is safe to tell us to do certain things. In the meantime, we are doing cleanups and making all the preparations for a humanitarian long haul. Because even if we go back earlier than we anticipated. And there are many, many things have to be done. And people, you might be going back in stages. Because you have to go back to a house. You have to go back to a clean environment. And that response may well be uneven. It's not going to be equal. It's not going to be like that over the whole period, over the whole place at one time. So it's but I am hopeful that we could go back sooner because than originally thought, because it was first felt that this would be a full month. I'm talking about activity at the volcano. Let us even say in a week's time they say, well, you can begin to make preparations to go back. Let's assume that. Remember, I'm not saying that, I don't want anybody to say that I say so. You must listen to my words carefully. The place had to be thoroughly cleaned. You might go and clean your house roof, but if the roads ain't clean yet, and you might go and clean your house, and by the time when the government is cleaning the roadside and taking up the ash and doing everything, and they're doing the sweeper and all the thing, and the ash blow back on the place, but what Alpha and Gomri and Juliana do? We don't clean down my house. So your house is not an island unto itself, separate and distinct from anything else. There has to be other supports. Schools have to be emptied in order for children to go back to school. I spoke yesterday about what the Minister of Education was suggesting in relation to exams and some face-to-face for grade 6 and Form 5. And of course, keep students at community college can go back anytime the place is cleaned up. And they set a date. Because it's not a shelter. So that is how I would answer my brother. There's or sister, whoever sent that thing. We're in a state of uncertainty still.
We have a call on the line. Hello, good morning. Welcome to our Iron Glass of Air program for this morning. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, hello, good morning, good morning, good morning, Prime Minister.
Morning, my brother.
Prime Minister, I really would not like to be in your shoes now. You are trying to be like everything for everybody, and it's a virtually impossible task, but you are doing a fantastic job. And we do appreciate this. Now, I know, I listened to you this morning, and I could hear the concern in your voice when the Deputy Prime Minister spoke about the houses that were destroyed in the northwindward part of the country.
Yes.
Because of the flows of the river and all of that. Now we've been dealing with these situations since March of last year. And we have gone into a different sphere now where we are dealing with the volcanic eruption. And as of tomorrow now, we're going into the hurricane season. We appreciate this. One of my big concerns is that
just plan it. You worry about it.
Alright, I will.
No, that's not the problem. You don't make no use of tablet because tablet that will get on you for you. I don't want to lie to you. Don't worry about it.
Wait me, so I don't have to look. Relax, relax.